Hey everyone, Joshua Gibson here. This week I am bringing you an episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I was joined by Tayler Harris. She's a coach and weightlifter. She is part of the Heavy Metal Barbell Club, and I could not go without posting this episode. Enjoy. Back for another episode of the podcast. This time I'm recording under the guise of Weightlifting House, and I am the philosophical weightlifter. And I'm joined today by Tayler Harris, weightlifter coach. How's it going, Tayler?
It's going good, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. And kind of to extend from the conversation we were having before I hit record, I'm sure people listening are probably familiar with the name. I'm sure they've seen you at MDUSA when you were training there, or maybe with the Heavy Metal Barbell Club. But in case people aren't familiar with you and your background, maybe you can kind of dive into how you got started in the sport of weightlifting, and then we can kind of get into the lead up to that, because I'm not sure if you were in any other sports or if you had an athletic background or all that good stuff.
Yeah. All right. So I was introduced through CrossFit, but I was kind of an early adapter. I call myself of CrossFit. So I started CrossFitting in 2009 when I was still in college. I had an ex-boyfriend kind of find a CrossFit WOD in a Men's Health magazine. And then we discovered like the only box in Asheville North Carolina. That's where I went to school. And from there, I realized what I was really enjoyed was weightlifting. So I started fully just weightlifting in, I think it was like 2011, 2012, with a coach up in Asheville. And I kind of would give it a go and then kind of take some time off just because I was younger and I thought I wanted to focus on like having a career and, being an adult. And then I actually started coaching myself and got hooked up with Tom Shroka. He was my remote coach, actually. I used to drive to see him every Sunday round trip, and it was about 2.5 hours one way.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I would drive down to train with Tom and a group of girls he trained in Charlotte. And after like my third Sunday, he was like, "Yo, what do you think about Muscle Driver?" And I was like, yeah, it's cool. He's like, "You're going to come try out." And I was like, "I am?" He's like, "Yeah, yep, you're going to come try out and we're going to see what happens." So he gave me like this very specific goal. I had to hit it my tryout. I did it. And so I joined Muscle Driver in April of 2014. I was with the team until we shut down in 2016. And then, I've just kind of been with Sean Rigsby, and I have Heavy Metal Barbell we have here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's kind of where I coach and train now. So
out of curiosity, because if Tom is kind of egging you on to join Muscle Driver, I'm assuming you were pretty good, or at least took to the sport. So maybe for the listeners, you can kind of give us your numbers now and maybe give us some insight into how much progress you made and how quickly you made it. Sure.
So currently best comp total is 209. I'm a 76 kilo lifter, or 75, whatever it is now. And then, so I've done 209 in comp. That is a 91 snatch and what is that? 17. I'm not really, a 118 clean and jerk. My best in training are 95 and 121. So my numbers are pretty close to what my current training numbers are. So at the time, I can't even remember what I was doing. It's more like a lot of what people don't realize at Muscle Driver. It wasn't like you got asked to join because you were phenomenal. You got asked to join because you had potential. They didn't recruit based on, if they were going to recruit, top athletes, why didn't they go after, I don't know who was really good then. I guess they kind of did, but like Travis Cooper wasn't really anyone. James Tatum wasn't really anyone at the time they recruited them. They just had a whole shit ton of potential. And so they brought those guys on, and because of the environment, like we had this amazing room, and we all just egged each other on and pushed each other to be better lifters. That's what, they wanted to see people thrive in that. So that's what I think more of what I was, is that I had potential
Okay.
to be, yeah. So like, I mean, like my numbers weren't great. I think I had a 180 total. I think I did something really crazy. Like at my intro, or at my tryout meet, I added like 15 kilos to my total.
Damn.
It was, yeah, it was one of those like extremely awesome meets. I did this amazing clean and jerk. I think it was like something like 105 or something, 107, something like that. But at the time, it was like a 7 kilo PR. And it was just like, Tom was like, fuck it, we're putting it on the bar, you're going to do it. I was like, all right, let's do it, son. So we did it. But then it was like, I kind of struggled because I went from being like a 6-time or a 5-time a week weightlifter with a full-time job to being a 9-time a week weightlifter without a full-time job. Which sounds great to most people, but at first, like your body's not really sure how to respond to that. At least mine wasn't. I was like, I felt very run down for the first like month or two, and we were leading into nationals at that point. So it was there was no like downtime. It was like, I hit the ground running. So
yeah.
Sorry, I kind of ran off with that question. Sorry.
No. Like the more information, the better. And that kind of brought on a few questions in my mind. As far as the effect that Muscle Driver has had after it dissolved and you left, that's kind of always an interesting question to me, because you can take, I think most people take that experience and then actually go off into a weightlifting kind of like not career path, but pursue it more full time and then coach. Is that kind of what you did? What kind of impact did it have on your life, and how did you kind of take that and obviously get to the point now where you're working with a weightlifting team and then obviously competing?
Yeah, so I actually think I'm one of the few that is not so I'm not a full-time coach. I'm actually back. I work a full-time job again. I work for a meal delivery company. I'm a product manager. So I have a full-time gig. I actually am just the background of the gym now. I make sure the bills are paid, and that making sure social media is going right, and trying to make sure keeping Sean in check. He does the coaching is his full-time gig.
Okay.
So that's so as much as like I'm a part of it, and or like when we travel, I make sure that everyone has a bed to sleep in, and and that we're all getting to the places we need to go. So that's kind of what I do there. But like, I mean, what I think it did for me more was it instilled a lot in me as an athlete. So I don't think I'll ever stop being an athlete. And I think part of that is because of Muscle Driver, because I was like, you have this, it's, you know how a lot of people, so the way I think about it is a lot of people talk about like back in college, like the good old days, like my good old days, like even though I went to school and I was actually in a sorority and all this stuff, like my good old days were Muscle Driver. Like I had those people were my family. We had a whole lot of fun. Like we did holidays together because we had to, like Thanksgiving fell 3 weeks usually before American Open, when it was just the American Open. And so we all had to stick around, and we were all from all over the place. So we always went to someone's house or apartment and ate together and just had a good time. So these are people, like, we all held James's firstborn child within a week of her life. Like, so things like that. Like that's kind of how that affected me. I think more is that I have an extended family that I've selected. That even now, like 2 years later, they're still family. We see each other maybe once a year, but we still really care for each other.
So I have a question I always ask everyone. I like to know kind of what was your favorite moment in the sport, or the best moment. And usually this is like maybe best competition moment or the proudest moment as an athlete. If you have one of those, maybe you can kind of detail it for us.
Yeah. So mine has actually happened very recently. I was selected to become part of Team USA and represent us at the 5th annual Qatar International Cup. So like things that I have been working towards is wearing the singlet that says USA on it and being a part of that bigger picture and having that opportunity internationally. Like that has been a huge goal. And I think I downplayed it at first, thinking, well, it's not Worlds, it's not Pan Am's. it's still an international meet, and I was selected, and like I'm going to this meet. So that has been like, I'm not an emotional gal, and I got fairly emotional over that. We were actually in public. We were getting ready to eat dinner. We were out somewhere with friends, and I got this email from Phil, and it just says like, here are the rankings for the 5th annual, or the Cutter Cup. And I was like, oh shit, whatever. And I like opened it. I was like, well, let's see how far I fell off, and didn't make, because they rank you, and you have to be a certain ranking to go. And I was like, Sean, I think I made it. He's like, what? I was like, I think I made this thing. I think I made it. And like handed him the phone. I had like my hands over my face and was like trying not to cry. I actually had like mascara on for the first time in like 6 years. I'm like, oh my God. And so, yeah, so it was a pretty emotional moment. Other than that, I would have to say my first national medal, which was in nationals in 2017. So that had been that one has a better story just because Muscle Driver had closed. I had a knee surgery. You know, I had finally come back and I clean and jerked like 117 to take 3rd place. And it was a big deal for me at the moment. Like, it was just good. It's my first national medal. So
that's awesome. And
yeah,
I always love to hear kind of stories like that. And just out of curiosity, how is your prep going for the meet?
It's going actually really well. Knock on wood. I have leading into the AO3. I had like a hip and back issue, and so we came home from that, and really, I rehabbed that, and like I'm feeling really good. Like the weights are feeling good, and I'm actually feeling really strong. So I don't think I want to be in as best shape I can be in, obviously. We kind of didn't have much time. I think we had 8 weeks from the day they told me to the day of the meet. So prep had to change a little bit, but I'm feeling really good. And like things are going, I think we're ramping up because we're 5 weeks out. So like my weights are starting to get a little heavier. Like I got to go up to like 110, 115 on last Friday, and like 90. So we'll see. Like, I think we're going good. So like, I have, I mean, you know this, but like, so Sean Rigsby is my coach, my business partner, and then my fiance. So, so when you live with your coach, it's a lot more intense in terms of like prep. Like, I actually have a goal. He's made me a goal that every night I have to do something for my recovery, be it like get in the ice bath or take a Epsom salt or get to bed an hour earlier or put the grass in my elbows or whatever it is. Like, he's always like, every night you have to do one thing for your recovery. And, you know, like if you say that to an athlete, they go home and if they tell you they did it, you believe them.
Yeah.
My coach sits in the living room with me and goes, you haven't done anything. Shit. I mean, I don't need to tonight, right? He's like, all right, I didn't know that I was dating a loser. Damn. All right. Shit. I'll get it done, man. So. And
you kind of mentioned it earlier, but how, I mean, obviously this preparation takes a lot of time and a lot of energy and effort. And then you have that full-time job. So I'm sure a lot of people listening are kind of wondering, competing at as high of a level as you are and putting up the numbers that you are, how do you balance having the job kind of to support yourself and also balancing that with training as intensely as possible to produce the best result?
So at first that was really, when I started this job, I told them I couldn't work more than 25 hours a week. And then that's obviously migrated to more. I've been very lucky. So this company was started by 2 former CrossFitters. My current boss actually used to be the president of the LWC in North Carolina. So when I told him what was happening, he's like, that's so fucking cool. Like, what time? So I like, if I'm like, hey, I'm not going to work. So I work from home too. So that's actually been a recent development. I used to work from an office and I would leave the office around 2 to get to training around 3 and train from 3 to like 5 or 6. But now it's like, since I work from home, all I have to do is like basically mark my calendar of when I'm training, and they make sure that we don't do meetings, we don't have calls, like everything's pretty like relaxed. So I've been very lucky. I think if I had like a more traditional job, like a 9 to 5, go in, wear a suit and tie and whatnot, like it'd be a lot harder. I've just been real lucky. Like this job is, so I work for, yeah, it's just a really good job. It's a really good company. They've been nothing but supportive. I'm taking off, 2 weeks to go around the world, and they're like, yeah, that's cool, dude. Just if you can check your email like twice while you're gone, we'll be really excited. And I was like, sweet. Okay. So that's kind of like, I have a best case scenario.
And then the other side of that question, the other side is obviously, what's the worst moment in your weightlifting career thus far? What's the hardest thing you've had to deal with, whether that's at a meet or in training, or something that really put the brakes on or was just kind of difficult to get over when it came up?
Oh, wow. So it was pretty earlier in my career, or at least in terms of like with muscle driver. I cut to 69 for the 2015 Arnold and bombed like hard. Like I was killing it in training, like doing great. I was sitting at like 70, 71 kilos. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to like be this, like, I'm going to do this. And I put myself on the board, and I bombed the clean and jerk. I couldn't put a jerk up. I kept passing out. Cause I had cut too much. I was like, I weighed at like 68 something, like 68.0. And it was like, you just can't, it's like, it was just too much. And I actually proceeded to then bomb out at like 2 consecutive meets after that. And it was just, I went, oh Lord, it's embarrassing. Like I have a little bit of a temper, and I went into a bathroom at one of these meets and like put my fist into a bathroom stall. 'Cause I was just so mad. And not at anyone, like no one, like my teammates, my coaching, they had all done everything. It was like me. I had just really fucked myself, and just mentally. And so that was really hard. So I actually got, I ended up talking with like a sports psych, and I ended up coming back up in weight. And that's actually when Sean took over my coaching. So we weren't dating at the time, but he saw like how much of a rut I was in, and like Don just didn't know how to pull me out of it, Don McCauley. And Sean was like, all right, I'm gonna take over coaching for a little while. And yeah, so he kind of took it over, and he's like, we're gonna go 6 for 6 in the next like 2 meets you lift up. He's like, even if we have to open at like 65 and like 80, he's like, you're not missing lifts. So that's what we did. And that was kind of where the turning, like where I came back around. But it was like bombing out is, I feel like bombing out for a lifter is where you learn what kind of weightlifter you are. Because you can let it define you, or you can kind of overcome it. Like you can be like, well, I guess I'm a shitty lifter, and like that's it. Or just like, or even people will like shrug it off, like, well, I bombed, it's cool. It's like, it's not though, because that's not what you did. Like you didn't prep for weeks on weeks on weeks and put all the hours of effort and time and reps, and your body didn't feel like shit for time, like for months, so that you could bomb out.
Yeah.
Like that's not, to me, that's not what the goal of weightlifting is. The goal is to show up and do your best and show why you're there. So
what kind of change, is there a noticeable change that you made or Sean made that you can kind of pinpoint and say, hey, this is what made the difference? Or was it just saying, hey, let's be a little less aggressive, let's open up a bit lighter, let's get on the board and build some momentum?
So it's kind of both. So his big goal for me is consistency, even today. Because he has realized that I at least am one of those lifters that like, if I'm smashing like 90 for like 10 singles, I'm not going to miss it in the game day. Like I'm not going to miss it on the platform. Because like mentally I'm like, this is easy. I shouldn't have to worry about this. But if we do that thing where like, you just barely touch 90%, you max out the Friday before, and then you go into a meet and you hope you make what you made on your max out day. Like I'm not that great at that. So he really worked on with me on consistency, because strength is not my issue. Luckily, like I've always been like, I don't mean to say it like that. Like, some people are just like I think I squatted like 300 pounds within like a month of working with Tom. Like it was just like, okay, cool. Like to me, it wasn't a big deal. It's like, okay, it's weight. But like consistency and technique is really was a lot more difficult for me to get. So Sean's big thing is like, he was like, you're going to be consistent. And then we're going to go into these meets and we're going to open you. Like, we're going to be a little bit, we have to be aggressive because my snatch is where I'm a little bit weaker. So he's like, we're going to have to like make bigger jumps to keep you on the board. So like he may open me, like I think we opened at Vegas with 87, which is my heaviest opener to date. So we open with 87, jump to 91, which it doesn't sound like for most women don't usually jump more than like 3 kilos. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I personally live 5 to 7. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we did 4 on that. And I think we only did another 4 on the next one. Yeah. Then we went to 91. Then we went to 95.
Was there kind of
go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, obviously taking bigger jumps that kind of requires a little bit of a different approach. But if people have seen the videos, specifically the ones I've seen on MDUSA, like you are a very, and correct me if I'm wrong, you seem like a very aggressive lifter, like a very maybe emotional lifter, and which is great to watch because, you know, it kind of gets me fired up. But do you think that goes hand in hand with taking bigger jumps? Are you kind of a person that just has like this supreme confidence when you're out on the platform? Is it something you've had to develop over time?
So I've always been a very angry, like even when I actually played soccer growing up and then played 1 season of college, and I was very angry. And it's not like angry at anything or anyone, or there's not probably any kind of, I'm sure someone Freudian will be like, oh, there's some kind of psychological, but no, I'm just like, I enjoy it. I like being kind of mad and like lifting that way and being like that controlled aggression towards the barbell, because it just, to me, it feels good. I tried doing the Zen thing, like being calm and like finding my center, and I like would shit the bed. So yeah, I guess I'm a little bit more emotional and a little bit more like, power, anger driven. So there's I think when you're on the platform, you have to have both minds. You have to be like, whatever your motivation is, like if it's being Zen, if it's being powerful, whatever, angry, you have to have that. And you also have to have that confidence. So if you don't have the confidence, or if you don't like being on that platform in front of people, it's not going to go well. Like, you have to want to be up there. And that, to me, like, I've grown into that. That was not my first, like, I have, you know, there's weightlifters that love that. They love stepping on that platform and they get high almost from it. And the first couple of big meets I did, I didn't feel that way. I felt very nervous and like didn't really look at the crowd and kind of, and I'm not like a nervous person, but I was like, oh God, these people are looking at me. What if I fuck up? And now I'm like, yeah, you're here to see me lift, and this is what I'm about to do. This is my platform. This is my weight. Let's go. So that sounds super fucking, that sounds awful, but that's my mindset. So I don't think I'm the best. Like, I know there's a ton of weightlifters that are better than me, like females right now, which is amazing. But like, the way I know that I'm going to lift that bar is because I know that people are there and I'm going to show them what I can do. So
yeah, I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense. That's kind of, and I don't know if that's a natural progression, because I've felt the same way. My first few meets, you kind of keep your eyes down, you look at the bar, you kind of pick your head up and look over everyone. And now I'll like stop when I grab the bar and I'm kind of sitting in the bottom, getting ready to lift, and I'll look up and just kind of look at everyone and kind of get excited from that. But I think that just, you know, some people are really afraid to go to their first meet, but it's almost like you need to break in the way you kind of perceive what's going on and get some experience and some exposure to it, because of course everyone's nervous. So if you had any advice to someone who was maybe competing for the first time, or someone that struggled with being confident with their lifting when they compete, would you have any words for them?
It would just be I mean, it sounds cliche, but have fun. Like, as cliche as that sounds, like, most likely if you're going to your first meet, it's not a national meet, it's a local meet. And there's probably dozens of people in the room that are in the same boat, that it's their first meet or second meet, and they're nervous. And it's like, just like, you need to have fun and remember like why you're doing this. Because if you're, you know, like, you didn't get into weightlifting. Most people don't get into weightlifting for the money or the glory or the fame. I'm just being real. Like, we run a weightlifting gym. It's not We're not over here rolling in the dough. But that's not why we do it. Like we do it because we enjoy lifting the barbell and seeing how much we can put on that and what our bodies can do. And you have to have fun doing it. Or it's like, why the hell are you here? Like, why are you doing this? So like, yeah, like it's just, hey, have fun. Like we actually had a brand new lifter. It was her second meet ever. And the first one out here, she's from California, and she was just a nervous wreck. And it was just like, Gia, like just go have fun. Like, what does it matter? Like hit your opener and let's have some fun. So that's what we did. So it's just, you just have to like have fun. It sounds so cliche, but it's what you have to do.
I mean, it does, but it's that is the reality of it. And I was kind of nodding my head when you were explaining how you lift kind of angry, and that's almost it's weird. That's how I lift as well. But as soon as I'll hit a PR, I'll be like really upset and really mad and kind of like slam the bar and then walk away, and then you just kind of have a smile come over your face and you feel fine, and it's like this Jekyll and Hyde moment.
Yeah.
Which
Exactly.
is so weird because people are like standoffish at first, and then you just start making jokes and cracking jokes, and everything's fine. But I think that's really important, and it's something you don't really come into unless you've had a few years of training. Maybe not a few years, but you've trained for an extensive period of time. And I actually recorded a podcast with my friend, and we talked about how we used to almost mimic weightlifters that we looked up to when we first started. And like you'd watch Ilya and you'd try to act like Ilya. And then eventually you realize, like, hey, I'm not Ilya. And what works for him doesn't work for me. What works for John North doesn't work for me. But that's something that just comes with time. And you can't really rush the process. Like, this is a sport you're going to hopefully do for the rest of your life. So you have plenty of time to kind of figure out what works best for yourself and then how to communicate what works best for other people to them.
How true is that? That's actually, I've never thought about that. Like how, like I used to watch tons of Lydia videos and just be like, I'm going to lift like her. Like, and it's even today, people, I think that's the Instagram, like people are like, well, I want to lift like insert this weightlifter. And so they just watch their videos and they try to emulate their movement patterns, even not just how like their persona, but like their patterns. And it's like, you've got to remember, like, you might not be shaped like them. You might not have the same mobility, or, you might have more mobility or whatever it is. Like, insert your personal issues versus their issues. And it's like, they're not going to add up. Like, I will never lift like Lydia, but like, I can appreciate her art.
Yeah.
Like the art of how she lifts. So
it's interesting because I remember like when I started the sport and when I would watch other sports, the coolest thing for me was the uniqueness with which how everyone performed what they did. And I always thought, like, I can't wait until I can see how I take the very basic tenets of weightlifting, like keeping the bar close, having like a vertical finish. I mean, whatever it is, right? The very basic aspects of correctly performing a snatch, and then seeing the way it would kind of change based on my leverages, based on my strengths and weaknesses. Like, to me, that was really cool. And I really like the individuality of it because of that. And, obviously we all want to lift like Lydia or Ilya, but I think the way someone else does it and their own kind of artistic spin on it is more attractive to me. And I don't know, it's just something I've observed from my time in weightlifting.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like it's you go to a meet and everybody's doing the same movements, but we're all doing it slightly different. Yeah. We're all hoping for the same goal, right? We all are trying to get that beautiful S curve and that nice bottom position, but like how each person slightly different because their shins are longer or like their hands or their arms are shorter. It's beautiful to see. So
yeah. And I think that's a really interesting message. And I don't know if you kind of convey this to people that you work with or people that come to your gym, but everyone is constantly kind of comparing themselves because it's like, hey, I don't, push the bar in as hard off the floor. And it's like, yeah, your legs are fucking 10 feet long. Like, you're going to have a pretty vertical bar path because you got to get those spider legs out of the way. But like, people are hypercritical, and it's weird because beginners will do that and they don't even know what they're looking for. They're like, it just doesn't look like that. And I'm like, yeah, but it shouldn't, because that dude's been doing it for 20 years. Like,
yeah, like you're not, he was a gymnast until he was 14 and now he's a weightlifter. Exactly. And that's all he's done for the last 20 years. Like, calm down. You didn't pick up a barbell until 6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I did want to touch on, you kind of mentioned it earlier. You were saying that kind of you start to realize what kind of weightlifter you are when you face a bomb out. I think that also applies maybe more or less to a serious injury. And I know you said that you kind of came back from a knee surgery, if I'm correct. Can you explain that recovery process and return to training and how you dealt with it psychologically? Because for a lot of people, the thought of a major injury and time off is like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. So I actually had been, so I stopped actually playing soccer when I was 18 because I had knee pain. Everyone dismissed it as like me being a baby essentially because I was young and like tendonitis. So I did too. And it didn't really come up again until I started weightlifting. And so honestly, the entire time I was at Muscle Driver, I had knee pain in my right knee. And we kept being like, oh, it's tendonitis. It's because of the way you're squatting, whatever it was. We kept fixing things. Finally, I got an MRI and I had like basically a hole in my articular cartilage. Yeah, I laugh now, but my quads developed so massively when I was young that it pulled my kneecap off track and actually was rubbing a hole in the cartilage. So yeah, it was kind of cool, seeing that. It was real fun. Some days I could squat without pain. Other days it felt like someone was taking my kneecap off with a crowbar. So I laugh because it's just like, I'm such an idiot. Like that's actually, before we go any further, if you have knee pain, do not keep squatting. Go to a doctor. Go get an MRI. Don't be dumb like me. So I actually went a solid 2 years probably with knees. Then we had a lateral release and a debridement. Like basically they went in and just cleaned out debris out of my knee. And I had surgery September 1st and didn't squat to full depth until January 1st of that year. So the first month, I'll admit it, I was probably depressed. Not because I wasn't really weightlifting before that because I had been in pain, but just because I couldn't do anything. Like I was walking up down the stairs of my condo with crutches, and it was so like trying to pee and get up off the toilet was like, I was like kind of special. I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. Like it just was like, so that was kind of that. And then the rehab process, maybe I had a better, but after that, so basically the first like 30 days after surgery, I was kind of down on myself. And then after that, it was like, okay, well, like what's the worst case scenario? Like what is, like at that point, it was like, you're not able to weightlift again. Okay, well, is that the end of the world? It feels like it, but it's not. But it wasn't. Like I came back much stronger. Like my knee does not hurt. I had a really great PT, two really great PTs actually here in Charlotte that have worked with me. And then like having someone who is willing to work with you and talk to you through the process. Like I know Sean and I have a different relationship because we're together, but like he was so great through the whole process. Like he basically mapped out my entire recovery. He would do like 3 weeks and we would like box squatting where I only went down like four inches and stood back up again. It was humiliating. I put 35 kilos on my back and it felt like someone was killing me because it was just heavy. But then the next week I was able to do like 45 and then 55 and then go deeper. And so, yeah. So anyway, it's just, to me, it's just like, you have to remember that surgery is not the end of the road. And if you recover correctly and actually do your PT and take care of your body, you're going to come out the other side feeling better and doing better. So I did a ton of research. I think I saw 5 doctors before I had surgery because I wanted to find someone who I felt confident in. So I didn't go to the first doc and was like, yo, you're going to cut me open and do this? Sweet, let's do it. The first doctor actually told me that I should retire.
Really?
Yeah, I left that. That's, again, probably only another time I've cried in public. I said I couldn't even make it out of the lobby. He was just like, yeah, well, you should retire. And Sean looked at him, and so we live in Charlotte, and this guy actually used to work on the Panthers, and he goes, if she was Cam Newton, you wouldn't say that. And he's like, well, that's a different story. And Sean's like, it's no different. She's an athlete who's young and can do this. Like, we're done. So, and finally I found a doc who was like, I mean, like, it's not beautiful in there, but we can definitely try and fix it. And if you recover correctly and do your PT right, we can get you back on the barbell. So I really worked hard to find somebody who was good for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I hope this doesn't influence your answer that we were just discussing that. But if you were to look back and if you could kind of, I guess, talk to yourself when you started the sport and give yourself some advice, does anything kind of come to mind as what you would say, or even spreading that a little bit further, what you would say to a new weightlifter who's starting the sport?
This is a marathon. It is not a sprint. You do not need to be snatching American records next week. That was, my first coach was very much like I qualified for the, way back when the American Open qualifying total was like 105 or whatever. Yeah, exactly. I qualified for Palm Springs, my first meet. And my coach at the time was like, you're not good enough. If you can't win, you're not going. And that really influenced the way I thought of the sport for the first probably year or two that I was in it. And, so I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to go to these meets. So like I skipped out on 2 years of nationals and AOs because I thought I wasn't good enough. And that's kind of when I moved away from that coach and took a year off and then met Tom. And that's when I realized like, this is a marathon. Like, this is not a sprint. Like some of these, like there are people who are amazing, like Maddie or CJ or Harrison, and you put a barbell in their hand and all of a sudden they're just like doing amazing things. But that's not most people. That's a 1% of the population. So it's just be patient with yourself, and like remember that this is a journey and that like this meet is not the end all be all. Like you've got time. So that's a big deal for me. Like I wish I'd been more patient and with myself when I was a younger lifter. So
yeah, I actually had someone say something similar to me. It wasn't me telling them that they weren't good enough, but she was like, I'm like, hey, you qualified for nationals, and she's like, well, I don't want to go. I'm not good enough yet. And it's like the only way you get better at competing at national meets is to compete at national meets.
yeah.
So if you're hoping that eventually you're somehow going to be like magically this phenomenal lifter who's going to understand everything that happens in the back room, it just doesn't work that way. So you might as well go while you're not vying for a medal, so that if you screw up, it doesn't have the implications of missing out on the podium. And kind of take advantage of it now and have fun and kind of relish in the experience versus saying, hey, when I can medal, I'll go. And then what happens if you bomb out? I mean, it's just, I think people don't follow that thinking as far as they should.
Yeah, like you can't think about, like I've been in my fair share of B sessions and A sessions, and like honestly, like I think the day, like my second nationals, I was in a B session and it was so much more relaxing. Like just on myself, like I had no pressure on myself about it. And it was great, but it was still like, I still learn things at every meet. And like at every meet, I learned something about myself as a lifter and like about how I process things. If that makes like every time, like I'll, like I think that it was like we were at nationals in 2017 and like Sean slapped my legs for the first time. And I was like, oh shit, I like that. Like that makes me feel awake. That sounds creepy. I mean like as a lifter, like it woke me up and like fired me up and made me extra pissed off because that man can hit, like he takes those hands and he just like hits my thighs. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, we're awake now. Let's do this. Or like the first time you use ammonia to meet, like even if it's a local meet, like you use it and you're like, either you hate it or you love it. We have lifters that like hit it the first time and they look like they're going to vomit. Like they just, and you're like, oh, right, that was a bad idea. Sorry. We have other lifters. Like I have, I think one male lifter, he's a collegiate and he's like, you got me ammonia this meet? I was like, yeah, Jacob, I got you. He's like, good. And he's like, can I just have it right now? I was like, no, dude, like we're not ready. Like you learn stuff about yourself and like, you don't want to go to your first meet and be like, I could beat Maddie Rogers. And then you get there and you just shit the pot, like shit the bed basically. And then you feel like crap because you've waited all that time, or you've waited till you're like, 30 and you've been lifting for 10 years. And finally you go to nationals and it's just, not what you thought it was going to be.
So I guess extending that question of what you would say to someone or yourself just starting the sport, what would you say to someone who is competing on a national level for the first time? Because obviously there's a little bit of a learning curve where you're at a local meets and they're kind of passing every lift that happens, even when someone's doing like a SOTS press in the bottom. So it's a bit different. So if you have anything you can kind of draw on from your experiences, what would you say to a person who's going to, say, AO finals in December for the first time?
Make sure you double check the schedule after the verification of totals and entries, because there's been many times that people get moved from like a D session to a C session and they don't realize it, or vice versa. Somebody moves weight classes, you get bumped down, and all of a sudden you've missed your weigh in. So that's a big deal. Is making sure you check your schedule after verification, and then you just do you. Like, again, this goes back to that. Don't try to play somebody else's game. Like, you play your game. Like, if you don't like music, don't put on headphones. If you like headphones, put on headphones. Like, if you like, make sure if you like to have a monster in the back room, like, make sure you go the night before and you get your monster and you get your snacks and you get everything you want. Like, I'm notorious for showing up to a meet with like a Target bag full of shit I don't need, but like, I might need it. Maybe I want gummies this meet. Maybe I want pretzels. Maybe I want a monster. Maybe I want a Red Bull. Like, I don't know. Like, I take everything I could possibly want into the back room with me, because I'd rather have it than not. So I'm an over-prepared kind of lifter. But yeah, so like, play your own game. Don't play someone else's. Like, don't try to be someone you're not. I mean, that's like a life lesson, honestly. Like, don't try to be like whoever. Like, we were AO and one of our lifters was like, "Ooh, you want me to braid your hair?" I was like, "No, I'm good." She's like, "Really? It'll look really cute for the pictures." I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." Like, I do this weird messy bun. It looks like shit. I look insane. It's fine. Like, I'm just not like, I'm not a girly lifter. Like, I don't do the makeup. I don't do my hair. I'm just like, I wake up, I brush my teeth, I put on deodorant, I make sure all my shit's in my bag, and we go to the venue. Like, that's kind of how I am. But that's not you. Like, that's not you. If you're someone who like wants your nails done and your hair and your makeup and you want to do that, like, do it. Or as a male, like, whatever it is, if you want to walk around the back room and yell at people, like, as long as you're not messing with their zen, it's cool. Like, I actually used to take Don. Like, John is one of my favorite people to have in the back room, Macaulay, because he talks shit across the back room with me. He'll like be at the table counting, and he'll yell something, and I'll basically flick him off, and he'll tell me to take the fucking bar. Like, he'll be like, "Will you just take the fucking bar already?" Like, we were in the back room, and Tim Schwartz was in there back there, and he was like, "Does Don always talk to you like this?" I was like, "Yeah, always." He's like, "Good man." So it's just like, you just got to figure out what you want in life, and like in being a lifter. Like, don't be fake, and don't be, because that's also something else, is you're setting yourself up to be something you're not. So when you go out there, you don't feel like yourself on the platform, right? Like, if you've tried to be someone else and you go out there, it's like, oh, I'm someone, you're not in your game. You're playing someone else's. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important because you can't really overstate the value of a routine and being consistent. So when you go to the American Open and you're like, well, I'm going to get a massage and I'm going to get all this caffeine and I'm going to do all these things that I've never done before. And it's like, sometimes it's unpredictable how you respond to that. Like, if you get a massage and you're overly sore the day after and you have to lift, or if you take a bunch of caffeine and suddenly you're jittery, I think it's really important just to do what you've been doing the last 12 weeks of the training cycle or whatever it is. It's not the time to get fancy and to go to cryotherapy and to do all these things that you've never done. And that's something I've actually pulled from Glenn. Like, he's huge on routine. That's like one of his keys to becoming a champion is wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, eat all of the same meals, just consistency with that approach. And I think it shouldn't change when you're on a platform at a meet. It's just more people watching. Like, it's literally the only difference.
Right. Yeah. No, it's 100% what that is. Yeah.
So have you, from coaching, have you had a different perspective of this sport, and has that kind of changed the way you've trained or competed as a weightlifter? Because, like, for me, I know once you have to start coaching other people, you have to know the ins and outs of what's going on with the pull, the technique, why the programming is the way that it is. All these small like little things that seem kind of meaningless from the outset, but when you actually think about the impact it can have on your performance, is magnified. So as you've kind of become a coach or developed your own weightlifting team, how has it changed the way you approach weightlifting?
Whew, that's a hard one. Trying to think. So I think that it's changed the way I train in terms of like I want them to see how I train as a example, or how we go to national meets and how I hold myself and how I am, and how like Shauna and I want to always be like a positive influence, even though like we're not that much older than a lot of our lifters, and in fact we're younger than some of them too. We want them though to know like we hold ourselves to the same standard, and we hold ourselves to this like respect level too. Like we respect our equipment the same way, like we paid for it, but we respect it just as much, like the same way we want y'all to respect it. We do all of our accessory work without bitching, because it's a part of life, and this is a part of weightlifting, and we want y'all to do the same thing. And so that kind of thing, I think like we do how we want others to do in our club. So it's the same way when we go to national meets. Like when we go and we are like, all right, y'all, like we set up training times, and we're all going together, and we're all going to wear, like, we want you to wear heavy metal gear because you want to. Like, we don't make that a mandatory thing. Like, they want to wear their heavy metal gear because they know we're wearing our heavy metal gear, because we're proud of this team and of who we are and what we've developed. And we want them to be proud. So that kind of thing. Like, to me, it's like it's held me to a higher standard in my day-to-day training. It's also, I enjoy honing my craft in a way. Like, as a coach, like you have to it's the same way with anything. You have to spend time watching people weightlift to get better at being a weightlifting coach. Like the first time you saw somebody do a snatch, you like, after you've mastered it, you're like, yeah, I know something's wrong. But then like, as like you watch more and more times, like you're like, all right, well, these are the cues and these are things that you need to work on. And it just keeps developing. So that's been something too that's really nice, that I know that I'm a better coach now than I was 2 years ago, because I've had to spend so many hours watching so many different people snatch and clean and squat and press and everything else.
And there's a lot of nuance to that. I don't think so. People can identify errors and maybe give corrections, but it's also the way you give a correction, I've noticed. Like, and it's also being able to read someone's mood for the day. For example, like someone might be upset, and you're like, hey, you're obviously, you're fucking up the pull, stop doing that. But maybe that's not the best way to approach it. And that's something you kind of develop over time, is being able to address different personalities and different circumstances. And I guess I was kind of thinking about my answer when you said that. And I think what it does when you become a coach is it expands your focus. You start understanding the goals of the training plan, not just the training day, not just the exercise, not just like what you're doing in that moment, but you're like, okay, I'm not going to bitch about my accessory movements, because they have been getting me jacked and they are going to add to my total. And if I'm going to bitch about them, I have to bitch about the muscle that they're building. So I can't do that. And also how it prepares you for competition. So if you're performing waves, and waves happen to suck because they're really tough, and it fucks with your timing when you come down in weight and you have to readjust. But you realize, hey, if I'm in the back room and I have to take some snatches because I've been waiting too long, like everything's going to have a payoff. And when you start coaching, you can see that payoff a little more clearly. And it's not just like, wow, I'm in a lot of pain doing sets of 10 in the squat. Like, what is life? And you have like this existential crisis. So yeah, I can agree completely with kind of what you were saying. And leading by example is huge. I don't think a lot of people give that enough credit. So I have a couple questions kind of as we wrap up that are a little more philosophical, a little more kind of out there. So you've played soccer and you've been involved with sports and now weightlifting. So you've kind of been around resistance training. So a question I like to ask everyone that comes on is, Do you think it would be useful for every person to resistance train, and what has adopting that habit, so I guess you could interchange that with strength training or weightlifting, like what has adopting that habit done for you as a person?
I definitely think it is. It's important for every single person that they should do it. Like, we actually had a client come in who's in her her early 20s, and it's like, how do you get out of the car every day? Like, picking up like a 5-pound dumbbell was like difficult. And it's like, you are preparing yourself for life, because you're going to have to you're going to move someday and have to move furniture, or have to pick up a heavy box of groceries, or move your dog food bag, or whatever it is. Like, life is resistance training. Is it like, like you're moving against gravity at all times. So why not? I feel like just having that little bit of extra strength is, as you get older, especially, like it's not going to do anything but help you stay healthy. Like, you're going to fall one day. Like, hopefully, I would love to see like my bone density when I'm like 90 and see like how much better it is than like my 90-year-old grandmother now, like just because of all this. So, and the second part of that was, how has it made me a better person?
Yeah. How has it affected your life? Because obviously you're kind of surrounded by it now. So it's done something to impact you a little deeper than just like, well, I look good or I feel good.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, I'm sure I mentioned earlier, like I've made some amazing friendships and essentially family as part of it. And then if I hadn't, I tell Sean all the time, actually, like, I was like, if I had said no to Muscle Driver, or if you had never moved out here from California, I would have never met him. So that sounds silly and very girly, but like, I met this person who is basically going to be my husband, and it's amazing. Like, it's just like, I otherwise would not have met him, and it's a great relationship and a great partnership. So that has definitely affected that. And then otherwise, like, I think just it's made me more aware of who I am as a person. Like, as like, what are my bigger goals? And like, I feel like I like went to school and like graduated and went to college, and I was planning on like, I was going to take a year off and go to law school. And I had this very like type A plan through life. And then I found weightlifting, and it
screwed it up.
It fucked it way up. I'm sure my parents hate that I found weightlifting, because because I was a year out of college. I was about to start studying for the LSAT, and then like I found weightlifting. I was like, I'm gonna put off law school for a year and just play with this. And now I'm 31 next month. So I've been graduated for almost 10 years out of college. Shit, I'm old. But yeah, so it's like, it changed my entire path, and it's been amazing. Like, this journey, I've gone to countries and cities and states that I've never gone to before. I met people I've never, talked to, and had this whole experience where like, it's really made me realize who I am, and like embrace myself as a person. Like the angry lifter thing. Like, I don't think I really embraced that as a soccer player. I think I kind of let that like roll off and just pretended like it wasn't part of who I am. And now it's like, that's me. And like, I have this intense side, and it's really fun to embrace and happen. Like, I get to do it every day, and like, let that little bit of like dark side come out. So
that's really interesting, because I've asked this question to plenty of people, and I don't think it ever came to like introducing or building relationships. I think that was something that is kind of undervalued, but I've come to realize, and it doesn't bother me at all, but all of my best friends are people that I train with or work with in the gym. Like, I don't have friends outside of the gym, as strange as that sounds, and I'm probably going to sound like a freak, but like, I see them every day for a couple hours a day, and we just lift weights and have fun. And it's,
but like, how much it's like, but that's awesome too. Like, think about that. Like, you don't have to force that relationship.
True.
Like, you have this very natural friendship that occurs because because you're there together every day with someone doing whatever it is. And, it's not weird. It's the same way if people play Dungeons and Dragons, or like their best friends or their work friends, because that's who they spend their time with. So those are people that like can relate to you And when you have like, you're like, man, I have the protein shits. They're not like, they don't judge you. They're like, all right, Taylor, maybe you should get some Toms. I'm like, yeah, I should.
You know
Or
what's
judge
funny?
you for bringing virus to the grocery store, whatever. Anyway.
You said that you made a really good point though. Like I never realized that. So when you train, you get really upset or really angry or whatever it is, and that's something that very few people see. So it's almost like the people you train with know you better than anyone else could, because the only time that would happen is in the gym or at a competition, or so they kind of go through those ups and downs of good training and bad training, and getting really focused and energized and ready, and then also being really kind of bummed out because your training's been shit for like 4 weeks and you're in this slump. And so I think that's really awesome. And the last question, this is like, if the last one blew your mind, this one's gonna fucking explode the earth.
Okay.
So what is one thing that someone listening could do each day to better their life or become a better person?
Oh, you're right. I think the room is like losing contact around me. I'm not sure how to deal. If you could do one thing, I think it would just be like, quit judging each other. Don't be a dick. How's that? Like,
Yeah.
Don't be dicks to each other. Like, I'm not saying you have to love everybody, because listen, I don't love everybody. Like, I'm a hard personality, and I'm sure like people don't love me. But I'm not a dick. Like, I don't go out of my way to like judge them on Instagram or get on Reddit as a fake person and make mean comments. Like, just like remember that everyone is in their own place in life, whatever it is, like outside of the sport, whatever it is. Like the woman you see at the grocery store who's like struggling, like she might have had like, you don't know, like maybe your husband left her or maybe her cat died. Like you don't know what happened. Like, so like don't judge and be nice. Like that's something else is like one of our lifters, this is kind of off topic and kind of on, one of our lifters always makes fun of me because when we go to like the grocery store or out to eat or I go get gas, I talk to the people who are working. Like I ask them how their day is, and I'm generally interested. And he's always like, you talk to everyone. Like, why the fuck do you talk to people? Like why? I was like, because they're people too. And like, you might have just made their day because they're working their crappy $8 an hour job and they're just trying to get through it. And you're trying to help them, make them realize that, they're a person and you're not chatting on your phone to your mom and like try to just get through the line and not talk to anybody. Like, I don't know. Human interaction is so underappreciated nowadays.
Yeah.
We're all so attached to cell phones that like we forget that other people are out there. And just be nice to people and like not being a dick to people is just, and those are not one and the same, honestly. Like you can not be a dick and not be nice and still not be nice to people.
Yeah,
like,
I think a lot of it comes with people not seeing any repercussions of what you said, like going online and just fucking up someone's life because they had an off day and they just want to make rude comments about someone's technique. And it's like, we don't realize the reach that has, because it's just like when you hit send and you close out the tab, like that's it. Like that's all you see of that interaction. But that can sit with the other person. Like I've had people send me like crazy messages and it'll really fuck up like a few days. And like, I'm sure to them, it was just like, oh, it's like 10 minutes of my day. I'm just going to say this fucked up thing and kind of be done with it. So I think even taking what you said, maybe like broadening it a bit, is just realizing the reach or the implications of what you're doing or saying. And that kind of drives you to be a little bit of a better person inherently. Yeah. Because some of the best friends I've had, like when I first saw them, I'm like, look at this fucking idiot. And then like, turns out he's like a really good guy. But like, so you have to kind of relax a little bit, at least like in my opinion. So
no, that's 100%. It's just, it's realizing that, yeah, like you say, interaction is so almost fake. Because I could even like, I actually got blocked by a fellow weightlifter recently because I beat her at a competition. And like, we were friends before that. And I was like, I don't like, and I think she just did it because she was angry. And I was like, and I found out like a few weeks later, I was like trying to find her. I was like, I haven't seen her lifting. Let's see how she's doing. And she blocked me. And I was like, oh, and she probably did it because she just was like pissed off in the moment, but it like kind of hurt my feelings. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I thought this was a sport. I didn't realize that like when we walked off the platform, you took it seriously kind of thing. So yeah, like something like that, like, or like, luckily I don't have the reach that you have even, or like, so I don't have people luckily reach out to say mean things. I'm sure now people are gonna be like, say
Yeah.
something mean to Tayler now. I mean, that's fine. Bring it, y'all. Let's do it. I have a really foul mouth and we can play that game. But that's like, I've been lucky enough not to have that, but still, like, I'm sure like some of these girls and guys that get things said about them on the internet, like they want to act like they're ducks and it rolls off them, but it's gotta in some way like hurt a little bit, like just a little bit. And that's just not cool. Like, we're all humans. Like, I mean, think about karma, right? Maybe that's how you need to think about it. It's like karma is real and like you're building up your karma points. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll build some points right now. Tayler, I really appreciate your time and coming on to kind of chat weightlifting and life with me. So for everyone listening that might be interested in knowing more about you, hearing more about you, or even if they're in the Asheville area,
We're Charlotte now.
Charlotte area, maybe even checking out the gym, where can they find all of that information?
Sure. So I am on Instagram, Harris Tayler. That's HARRIS TAYLER. And Heavy Metal Barbell Club is the name of the club. You can find me on Facebook, but I really don't do anything there. So Instagram's just a better place. Or yeah. And also, I'm going to shameless plug. I am, the Qatar trip that we are doing at the end of December, I am completely self-funded for that. And I am raising money. So if anybody wants to feel generous, I am selling t-shirts on a link on my Instagram. They're really cool. They're a long sleeve. They're going to be the red of the Qatar flag. It's just, and if you give like $50, it's I get to put your logo or your face on the back, whatever you want.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so like I've got a guy who wants to put his face with a thumbs up on the back, and I'm like, sure, man, whatever you want. Or if you don't want your name, just nothing vulgar, because it is my dad did buy one, so let's not do that.
Well, shit, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to pick one up. And everyone, it's funny because everyone wears support your local weightlifter t-shirt. So why don't you guys and gals all take the opportunity to go support Tayler, because you preach the message, so you got to live it now. So go support her trip, and everyone listening, if you guys really enjoyed this conversation, feel free to share the podcast with your friends, subscribe to the show itself, leave a review, 1 through 5 stars. You can really say whatever you want without, really seeing any implication of that. So might as well go have some fun, right? And Tayler, thanks again for joining me. This is another episode of the Weightlifting House podcast. And this is the Philosophical Weightlifter, and we will catch you guys again next time.